Today, we're gonna talk about laptops. Specifically, this little machine right here, the LG Gram. Hey everyone, I'm Doug with B&H, and if you wanna see any more of my lovely apartment, subscribe below. So let's begin. So who is this laptop for anyway? When you go to buy a laptop, usually you see things categorized for different people. They're aimed at different markets. This one, I would say, is aimed best at the business professional, or really anybody who needs a very solid all-around laptop for everyday use. It's very light, slim, easy to carry around. I would also say it's good for developers who need, again, a light laptop, but one that focuses more on the CPU and storage side and less so on the graphics side. If you don't need graphics at all in your consideration when purchasing a laptop, this is a great laptop for you. But basically, if you need a lot of different connections, a good color accurate screen, and a pretty solid CPU all on a very slim profile, this is your laptop. Well, let's talk some specs, huh? I want to hear some specs, do you? The LG Gram has an Intel quad-core i7, and that's at a base clock of 1.8 gigahertz. A little bit low for my taste, but in day-to-day tasks, the turbo up to 4 gigahertz combined with the 4 cores usually keeps things moving along. It's pretty snappy overall. If you're browsing the web, watching videos, or just using Windows in general to copy files or move around the system, there's no lag, no stutter. It's very smooth and responsive. By the way, boot up times are insanely fast, and that's not really a surprise. It's all thanks to the solid-state drives. Now, in a lot of the literature from LG about this machine, you'll see that it says 1 terabyte capacity, and that's true, but it's actually underselling the machine a little bit because it's 2 separate physical 512 gigabyte solid-state drives, both M2 by the way. And that means that as opposed to a few years ago, it wasn't that long ago where you had to get 64 or 128 gigabytes on your solid state for the operating system, and then maybe 512 gigabytes of a traditional hard drive as storage. And that's still the way a lot of people work, but to have both in this system is great. The Gram also has plenty of RAM to spare with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. There's not much to say here other than that 16 is a lot more than most people need. If you're doing some light photo editing, you'll probably still have plenty of RAM to spare. Now, one of the 2 features on the Gram that really shines out, not so much on paper, but more when you actually see it, is the screen. Although this computer isn't really graphically powerful, it has a screen that I would personally more typically assume is on a more media-focused computer. LG uses a 1920 by 1080 display here, but it has surprisingly accurate color and really deep blacks. Now check this out. You want USB-A? It's got that. You need to connect your monitor over HDMI? Guess who doesn't need a dongle to do that? Got any micro SD cards lying around? I know I do. Guess who doesn't need an adapter for them? Do you want Thunderbolt 3 on your PC? That's right, it's here. So the first thing you notice is how lightweight it is. It's very light at just 2.41 pounds. It's a metal alloy design, feels very solid overall, minimal flex in the body. Really, it's the layout that lets you know who this is aimed at. Now, we already talked about the wide range of connectors, but there's also the little things like the full numpad. Now, the screen is really nice. It is just a 1080p screen, but as far as colors are concerned, this is a very interesting IPS display. IPS displays are known to have more accurate color, but they're not always known to have very good black levels. In fact, a lot of times there's glow around the edges. This is not the case though with the Gram. From the moment you turn it on, it's got deep, rich blacks, and LG is very proud of that because the stock background is in space. So let's talk about performance. Like I said before, this is an Intel i7 1.8 gigahertz quad-core processor. It is a little bit low, and you're not really gonna do something like video editing on this. However, for everyday tasks, we're talking email, web browsing, talking online, watching movies, listening to music, pretty much everything that you would do in your normal day-to-day, this is more than enough for that. The SSD and the 16 gigabytes of RAM are really what keeps the Gram going though. What the Gram might lack in processing power, it more than makes up for in storage and raw throughput. Well, let's jump back to the LCD screen for a second. It's really nice for watching movies or editing photos, and that's what kind of puts the Gram in a very interesting position. The Gram's major loss would have to be the fact that it doesn't have a dedicated graphics card. So that kind of begs the question as to what to do with such a really nice display. Now personally, I like all my devices, whether they be phones, tablets, computers, TVs, even the monitor on the back of my camera to have a really nice display. To me, that makes the device feel more solid, more premium, more complete. It's just more pleasing overall. Now, the only criticism I would really have for it is that it is a bit of a dimmer screen, and since it's glossy, because it's a touchscreen, it might pose a problem for you trying to view outside. However, if you're in the home, the office, or that portable office we all love known as the coffee shop, you'll be fine. Let's see what the Gram can do. Let's take a look at some photo editing examples. I've already copied the photos over to the internal SSD manually, so I'm simply going to add them to the catalog. By the way, everything you're seeing right now is in real time, so you get a sense of how the computer really feels. Every time there's a cut, I'll make it obvious for you, like this. So let's start by just cropping the photo to taste. Right now I'm using the touchscreen to zoom in and move around the image, and it works alright, but this is still the desktop version of Lightroom, so I think I'll just stick to the mouse for now. You should know though that the trackpad does have a bit of drag to it, so I'd say it's pretty average. It does thankfully take the usual 1 and 2 finger scrolling gestures though. So as you can see, at least with simple exposure and contrast adjustments, the Gram isn't really held back here. Now this isn't a serious edit, but if I wanted to do light adjustments like this, on the go, I've got the storage space and screen to do so comfortably. So let's wrap things up with a few extra details worth mentioning. The power button has a built-in fingerprint reader which can be used to log into the system. The numpad is really nice to see. I know not everybody feels they need this, but some people are gonna love it. It does make the keyboard a little bit crowded, and that's usually what you have to take with these kind of laptops, but overall it's a pretty nice experience. Now, Thunderbolt 3 means that not only will you have access to one of the fastest data transfers you can possibly get, but you also are able to connect a 4K or 5K display. The sole Thunderbolt 3 port also delivers USB power to other devices, meaning you can charge things if they're USB-C. Laptops often feel like compromises. Believe me, I know. The thing is, if you don't need graphics performance, the LG Gram really does get as close as you can get to what I would consider a perfect laptop. It has the breadth of connections, the bigger screen, the longer battery life, and the full-size keyboard that you would expect and want from a larger laptop. But it also feels just as light, and it's easy to pack away like a smaller 14 or even 13-inch laptop. If you're carrying this thing around all day, that matters. So some of you may have noticed that this is a new thing for us. This is a new thing for me. If you want to see more computer reviews, computer hardware discussions, things like laptops, desktops, video cards, CPUs, you name it, leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. I love to talk about this stuff. My name is Doug with B&H, and I'll see you next time.